What's going on, fam? What is going on? Isn't it Friday? I hope you have your libations, whatever you needed during the weekend or whatever. I hope you have whatever concoction that you have decided to put together for yourself. Now, this is part 2 of the book club for those of you all who didn't know, or who kind of fell in here like, what is this notification about? I have no idea. Well, yesterday, if you were not here, we were only able to get through the first half of the book, which was very unfortunate. It was very, very, very unfortunate. So I said this might happen anyway, and we would know. So we're going to go on right now. We're going to go on and get through the rest of the book. Now, if you all remember, while you're here, take your time and hit the like button and hit the subscribe button extraordinarily. So please do that. Hit the like, hit the subscribe, hit that bell for me so that you get notifications. And can you please, can y'all double check to make sure that you get notifications from me? That is important. Just make sure you get those notifications. We're going to get right into the book. I think we left off, if I'm not mistaken, I marked it page 105. So why don't we get back started? What is going on with the interweb? See, you know what? There's too many people online at night because of the COVID. Especially Friday nights. They on here doing online Zoom dating. Now that ain't right. Now y'all gonna have to everybody's gonna have to relax. That's all. So anyway, go to page 105. And 105 has something very interesting if you read this line. Go to that first paragraph. Changes in the education. If I said this before, please forgive me, because I know I left off at this page, but I don't know if I read this quote. I don't know what is going on with this thing right here. But for those of you who are on page 105, right, go to that first quote right there. Let me try to figure out what's going on right here. Just acting up. Have to get these things in order. Everything has to be in order. Everything absolutely has to be in order. We can't be having things out of order. It don't make no sense to live that way. Now, the first paragraph says is to contextualize the trends in social and economic status. It is especially useful to examine how the educational profile of the black immigrant population changed between 1980 and 2014 as the flow of black immigrants increased and shifted in composition, moving from a period dominated by Caribbean migration to a period dominated by African migration. Ladies and gentlemen, what they're saying is that these two groups ain't the same. Educational component, none of that. Ain't none of this stuff the same. That's what they're telling you. And let me tell you, that is very interesting. Because what that tells you is that we have not only flattened, like I said yesterday, we have not only flattened American blackness, we have flattened blackness overall. Ain't that something? Now listen, family, let's go on. Let's go on to the next page. Let me see. Let's go to page, I kind of want to go to that page. Did I have this? Let me see if I have this chart. Let me see if I have this chart. Because no, that's just, well, it's interesting to look at this too, because to look at the do I have the educational chart? I don't think I do. It was so hard to try to get these charts. This is well, nah, that don't break them down. That doesn't break them down. I don't think I had the chart I'm looking for. So, family, let's go to this next page, though. Now, you all who have the book, can you look at page 106? And I want you to look at the immigration and the remaking of Black America in this book. Average years of schooling of adults ages 25 to 64 by nativity, immigrant arrival cohort, and census year. Now look at this. Look at the 12, right? Look at the 11. Now I want you to look at all Black Americans at 11.25. Again, this is page 106. The chart on page 106. 11.25. Caribbeans, that's 1980. This is the 1980 line I'm looking at. Caribbeans a little bit above that at 11.50. African immigrants at 14.49. Now, if you go to 2014, if you break them down, though, you see who's the most ahead. Nigerians are the most ahead, and they're still at 14.98 in the 2000 to 2014 bar, right? Ghana 14.40 to that's in 1980 to 13.46. Now, understand something. This is still above all black Americans. So, one of the things that we have to kind of rid ourselves of. Now, you have those who are below. You have those who are from places like Dominican Republic who have much less, but they think of themselves as white or something. You don't have a lot of people who are much less though. I'm looking at all black Americans at 11.25 in 1980. They went to 12.93 in 2010 to 2014. Now I want you to look at the groups who are below that. Haiti, Dominican Republic. Not a lot though. And look at the groups that are above it. Again, Nigeria. Ethiopia. That's why we have so many Ethiopian doctors. This book helps you understand a lot about what's here and what's not here. Ghana, Kenya. Kenya's way ahead. So you see what you see there is you do have, even in terms of the people who have or coming from countries where they don't have a lot of education. What we saw in the last show is that even not having a lot of education is really having a lot of education, because they're not coming from places where they have a regular K through 12. They're coming from places where you have to pay for that school. So even though we don't, remember we talked about that, even we don't think of that as a regular K through 12, but it really, we think of that as like, oh, that's not nothing. But it really is something if you come from somewhere where you have to pay for that. That makes it a much bigger deal than what we think of before. And you see how many, it kind of makes you see how many groups are close to or kind of ahead of us. And what that means, even if you weren't ahead of us, but you had to pay for that. So we have to stop thinking of all immigrants as like, I don't know how you want to put it, as people who are like all in the same group. They're all just suffering and going through it. No, people are very, very, very different. Somebody just put in the chat, Barack Obama's dad was Kenyan. Yes, and look at the Kenyan chart. That's why he was at Harvard. So how does he, as Barack Obama, anchor himself in ADOSness? When you look at Kenya from 1980 at 15.17, and in 2010 to 2014 at 14.29, they're still at the top of the heap. They beat out in 1980. When they were at 15.17, they beat out Nigeria. Okay, take it all the way back. I think if you go all the way to, they still do. They still at the top of the heap, right? So how do we have this kind of ongoing narrative of this sameness of blackness? And I think this is not my job. This is the job of black immigrants of every sector, to kind of discuss who you are and what your contribution is or has been, or what brought you here, right? Why you came here and why you are in solidarity with us. And I think that has to be the thing too. You have to be in solidarity. I don't think there's anything that works if you're not in solidarity with the people that you, whether you like it or not, that white people put you in the category of, right? So there's a lot that has to happen that hasn't happened. But let me move on. But that's a great chart. Page 140. Let's go to page 140. Even though, page 1, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it though. I want to stop right there for us, but I'm not going to do it. Let's go to page 140. Let's skip ahead a little bit. Although there's some good charts in between, and if y'all want to tell me about them when you call in, that's just wonderful. What is going on with the interwebs? Okay, page 140. A lot of charts in between. If you want to bring it up, where is page 140? Good Lord. Okay, go to page 140 and we'll see. Go to that second paragraph. The analysis also produced a finding that has been missed in most prior studies on the labor market experiences of black immigrants. Black immigrant men and women from most of the focal countries eventually surpassed the labor force participation rates of both black and white Americans. You surpass. Now here's the kicker. Here's the kicker, family. If you surpass the labor participation rate of both black and white people, if you're doing better than white people, what that means is that you're not part of a bottom caste. You have somehow been catapulted out of that. But if you are not that, that means that you don't. How it doesn't make a good case for affirmative action, right? For you. Now, I think you can make a case for that everybody doesn't do well. So like people from the Sudan or whatever, because this book makes the case they're from largely Muslim countries or whatever, and so there may be some anti-Muslim sentiment, or you may not be able to kind of assimilate as well because of your religion. So if that happens, we understand that there is not a sameness, but this is kind of telling us that there is a ability to surpass white people. I don't know how you get affirmative action though if you surpass the white people. If you're doing better than white people in this country, I don't know how you should have access to anything that's meant for ADOS and what we've been through. That is a key point. And listen, white people got to let's talk about white people for 1 second, please. White people got to stop talking about, well, why do black immigrants do so much better than you when they come to this country? Why they do better than you? Why do so many of them do better than you? Don't just talk about me. This is not about melanin. If they outpace and surpass you, tell me why they do better than you. Jethro, let's have a conversation about it. Don't make this about me. This is about where they're coming from and what they have to lose and what the cost is and how much better this is when they come over here, and how white supremacy has kind of engaged in this whole battle to bring them over here and present them in a certain way. I think part of this book kind of tells this how concocted and vicious white supremacy has been for, I think, forever. This is how they have done this, is some vicious stuff. So Jethro, I need Jethro to explain some stuff to me. Page 171. Let me make sure. Page 171. Let's go there, fam. Let me take my little pen out of here. I don't need that. This was an interesting quote. Now listen to this quote. It says, this is the second paragraph, although research suggests that wealth holdings and debt levels of black Americans and black immigrants are comparable, there is little information on immigrant wealth holdings at origin. So we know what you're able to do when you come here. We don't necessarily know where you come from, right? And what wealth you held. So let me just keep going. Despite the popular myth that immigrants comprise the poorest members of the origin society, it takes resources to move. Because many black immigrants tend to come from the higher social classes, many of them are likely to have been property owners in their origin countries. Although I cannot examine this claim with available data, it is possible that black immigrants are available to leverage wealth obtained in their origin countries to purchase homes in the United States. Moreover, even if immigrants are not able to directly transfer home country wealth to the United States, their wealth holdings in other countries could place them in a better wealth position than that of black Americans, allowing them to take greater financial risks. In general, wealthier individuals take more financial risks both because they have the resources and because they have a financial cushion to rely on if investments fail. Among immigrants who own homes in the Caribbean, for example, returning to their home country may be a reasonable option if investments in the United States fail, a factor that may increase their risk tolerance and the likelihood that they will purchase a home in the United States. What he's saying is that, listen, I can't call it for sure, but I think that they're able to take some chances and do some things that we might not be able to do. And we have talked about on this show the importance of having the importance of having a home country. So if you have a home country, if something pop up here, you can say like Emmanuel Acho did, I'm going to get my passport. I'm going, as all Nigerians should. So you can be kind of Nigerian and have your foot out in one door, and then be American and have your foot in Oprah's bedroom in the next show, right? So you can be two things at one time. There's a lot of power in being able to be two things at one time and know if some stuff pop off wrong here, I can go. And I have some stuff that I can build and do over here. And I have something I can take advantage of over here. And I can play the race game over here, Emmanuel Acho. Ooh, I'm going to get you one day real good. But I can play the race game over here and pretend that even though I went to a top white school that my parents paid cash for, my daddy was a doctor, I can pretend because I have a big black body that I understand race in terms of being a bottom caste, in terms of being ADOS, not in just terms of being black. That's different. You grew up white rich. You don't know what it's like to live what we have lived with the cost that we have, but Oprah is positioning you to speak for us. Oh, we're going to talk about it one day. Because this book kind of shows why you're a problem. Even you putting yourself in the position of somebody from Haiti is a problem. Be like, we're all black immigrants. No, you're not. You come from something different. You come from and you represent wealth. And in order to make a name for yourself now, you are representing a bottom caste. That's kind of vulture-esque in the way that you're moving. And, Oprah kind of co-signs it. So it is what it is. I tell you, it is what it is. Now, let's see where we're going next. Let's go to page 186. 186. Now, go to this last paragraph. Relative to immigrants who have been in the United States between 0 and 5 years, among immigrants from the Caribbean, time spent in the United States is associated with worsening health profiles. By contrast, the figure shows that health of African immigrants improves the longer they live in the United States. Now, why would your health improve? If you look, there's a chart. Now, we're gonna have to talk about it, but you look, there's a chart. Health disparities among black immigrants by duration of U.S. residents, adults aged 25 to 64. I don't know. This is page 186, family. This is page 186, and look at the chart next to it. I don't know why you would shows that health of African immigrants improves. Maybe you eating good and living good. Not all of you. I'm not saying from the Sudan or I know, because I know you have people there who are also vegetarian, so there's a lot to compare. It would be interesting to see which Africans, like when you turn over here, like you have Caribbeans over here. If you look at the chart on page next page, 187, whatever. If you look at here, you see all Caribbean, sub-Saharan. I would be interested though to see this by country. That would be very interesting to me. It's not broken down that way, but I think that would be very, 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 very interesting. Let's go to page 192 really quick, and then we might come through some stuff, and then we might just discuss free form, if you will, because I have a lot more underlinings and stuff, but I think we can just discuss it free form. Page 186. I mean, no. You know what? Page 192. I said. I'm sorry. I just wanted to bring this in because this kind of, even though this is a quote about something else or about this, kind of bring home what we said before about ADOS being a bottom caste. So I wanted to kind of just posit this and like anchor this to kind of show where we are. So page 192, that second paragraph. In the diversity paradox, Lee and Bean captured the extent of black exceptionalism embedded in the intermarriage market. They quote a 24-year-old woman born to a white mother and a Mexican father. I was never brought up to hate or dislike black people. But if I dated a black man, my white side of the family and Mexican side of the family would disown me. Now, hold on a second. You were raised to hate black people. If the idea of bringing a black man home means you get disowned, you were raised to hate black people. I don't understand. Some people are just too stupid to really, I don't even understand what they're doing. But let me just go on. And they've made it very clear. My dad told me if I ever brought a black guy home, he would kill him. And my grandma told me if I ever brought a black man home, that she would kill me. As long as he wasn't black. Never said anything about Asians or Indians or Pakistani, nothing. As long as he wasn't black. In the same chapter, a second generation Chinese woman who married a black American explains that her immigrant parents opposed her marriage because they believe that it will close off opportunities for her and to move up in society. Now, what that is telling you very clearly is that whether you realize it or not, you know, we've seen the wealth data in LA, in Miami, in Boston. And when you see every other group come and move up, and when you see people say, you can't marry this person, we don't care, because they're a member of a bottom caste. And when you marry them, it becomes like an albatross. Now, I don't know what, right, the Mexican lady, I don't know what you're talking about, Consuela. But what they're telling you is that they understand you're a bottom caste. And so even when you see people talk about this people of color solidarity, we got a coalition, it's really kind of trash, because you all know, so many of you, that you all have these same conversations at home, right? You all know that you've been told the same kinds of things that have been told here. Then you want to come to us and say, but I don't know, we're all people of color. Why aren't we in this together? I don't understand. I thought we were all, oh, you're so divisive. No, it's kind of like the Karen Atia lady that Antonio brought the last episode. You were told at home to kind of distance yourself from ADOS. This is nothing that we're doing. The division happened in your household. And then all of the people of color brigade want to come and gaslight us and say, oh, you're being divisive. No, your mammy was divisive. Your pappy was divisive. What would you, papa was divisive. Right? We did not create any kind of divide. As a matter of fact, we did not delineate. And that doesn't mean discriminate. Delineate doesn't mean discriminate. You say that you're saying that you have a justice claim doesn't mean you're discriminating against anybody. Not a black immigrant, not a Mexican, not an Ecuadorian, anybody. It means that this is my justice claim. And we have never understand that we have never done this. Like, we have never, for the most part, said, oh, where you from? Pakistan. Oh, no, my family is really discourages dating first generation immigrants. I don't know if we can go out. We never did that. Like, show me one person who did that, but they do it. Like, we have so many different people who do it all the time in their house, and they just don't tell us. And they come out and say the politically correct thing. Let me tell you, one of the best things about this show, in terms of black immigrants who watch this show, and even white immigrants, we've had a German lady, we've had white people call in, is the ability to get honest, because that's what it means to be an ally. And we have to be accepting of allies who come in, but they have to be honest. And we have had honest allies who say, yeah, you're right. And who have called us on stuff, who say, yeah, y'all pick up Africa. We don't do that. Y'all do that. What's wrong with y'all? You're right. You're right. We have to check ourselves too. Like, this has been a good experience for everybody involved. The whole point of this and this book, and I'm going to say this because I want everybody to have a chance to call in. So I'm going to stop in a minute and we're going to have a discussion. But the whole point of this book is not to exclude black immigrants. Because, listen, there are some bells you can't unring, whether or not you want to or not. It don't matter. None of that matters. The point is, you have to be able to understand who everybody is and who you are in the context of that. Then, after we do that and understand who we are in terms of ADOS and when everybody got here, and who contributed and who didn't, once you do that, the next thing that has to happen is you have to be able to say, I need to be able to discern an ally from an enemy. I got to be able to tell. This book right here makes it so nobody can lie to you. So nobody can lie to you and say, no. That's not true. I only went to 12th grade. Costs a lot to go to 12th grade where you came from. Tell me more. That's what it means. You got to be able to tell an ally from an enemy. You got to be able to do it so that people can't traffic off us not being able to understand. And you got to stop doing like the brother Carl, who was talking to us the other week. You got to stop elevating people above you. Oh my goodness. Oh my God. Y'all come from kings and queens. Nah, some of y'all come from spear chuckers. Okay? Like, no, ain't no just no kings and queens conversation. You can't have kings and queens and not have people who not have peasants. Anytime you have kings and queens, you got peasants. That's just the way it works. And we don't even get to travel enough to understand, oh, this ain't no king queen situation, is it? I'm not talking about how it got that way, but we don't even travel enough to know that, like, we being lied to. We don't travel enough to know, like, oh, somebody done told me a tale. We don't even travel enough to know that there's this huge disparity among immigrants. And how somebody who lives one way, how a Kenyan and a Nigerian, in terms of their elite status when they come over here, is very different than somebody who comes from Haiti, right? We don't even know enough to kind of know that. And I think what has to happen before I go to the cause is that we got to figure that out. We have got to figure that out. So I'm gonna go to the cause early today so we can have a discussion, which I meant to do yesterday, but I got caught up. I'm gonna go to the cause. We're gonna have a discussion and we're gonna talk about what it means to come from kings and queens. No, I'm just playing. I'm just playing. But we're gonna talk about this book. Y'all have your bookmarks and everything ready so that we can do that, and we will set up the phones. And I'll be right back. right, fam, we are back. I posted the two lines were still open. Y'all fill them up real quick. I just wanted to, because I'm saying, if you want to get in and have the conversation, I'm gonna try to get through all of them. Bang, 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 bang. Yosemite Sam. So I'm going to the first one. I'm going to 919. 919. What is your name? Where you calling from? What's on your mind?
Hey, Yvette, it's Keisha from North Carolina. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. How you doing? Turn you up a little bit.
I'm good. Y'all roasted me last time, so I'm trying to make sure we good.
I didn't do nothing. I don't think I did, but I'm sorry.
No, my phone was ragged.
Okay.
The first one I wanted to get in, I actually wanted to go a little bit backwards to page 55.
Okay.
And it's the second paragraph, and it talks about the economist Barry Chiswick suggested that the earnings crossover, blah, blah, blah. Amongst black immigrants, most political refugees hail from Haiti and Africa, with very few from the English-speaking Caribbean. Chiswick's predictions implied that relative to black immigrants from the English-speaking Caribbean, black immigrants from Haiti and Africa, particularly those from Somalia, Liberia, Sudan, and Ethiopia, are less likely to overtake the earnings of black Americans. And this was in reference to selective migration. Mm-hmm. And while I guess he's speaking to that certain time before now, mm-hmm. but I just was notating that that doesn't seem like the case now, because while these groups may not have been politically motivated then, they are now coming here, becoming very politically motivated, and then advocating for their own, their own people who are coming from other countries, because mm-hmm. we're starting to see the rise in Somalian politicians, Ethiopian politicians, and things like that, and then they're advocating for themselves. So while that was the line of thinking then, it has moved dramatically, at least from what I can see, living in Michigan now.
Well, and I think even when he says, like, Chiswick's predictions imply that relative to black immigrants, like you said, overtake are less likely to overtake the earnings of black Americans. The problem is that contradicts the data that we have, right? So when you look at the wealth, the Miami wealth report or whatever, or LA, you see the overtake that he says was unlikely. So that's what's happened. And I'm not saying it's happened for every single African, but when you see a group from Haiti who had one of the lower numbers overtaking native black Americans in Florida, you have to say, like, this was wrong, because it did happen.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. The next point, because I'm from North Carolina, but I guess you could call me a mover, and I now live in Michigan. So okay. I definitely see the difference between how immigrant populations are working and advocating differently. There's more of the Hispanic population down in the South, but here I see a lot of the Somalians, Arabics, and things like that here in Michigan now. Mm-hmm. So the next point I wanted to move to was page 178. Okay. And so the second paragraph, it says, health outcomes among immigrants tend to eventually converge towards the health outcomes of their racial ethnic counterparts in the United States. One possible explanation for the erosion in immigrant health associated with time in the United States is exposure to racism and discrimination, as well as other negative social, economic, and environmental factors that have been a detrimental effect on the health of U.S. minority groups. Mm-hmm. So I guess the smart people, and the people who write articles and things, this is what they call that weathering that we go through with having to deal with the caucasity of America. So not only do we have to deal with the just stress from the caucasity of it all that we deal with, we have to deal with like the show you did the other day with the congressperson who in Louisiana who hasn't spoken at all in reference to the people that have been poisoned in the community Richmond, I think was politically. And then we have to deal with the homicide rate and then incarceration. It's like America, like you said, we're not even supposed to be here. And it feels like America is like, we're doing our job to make sure that they're not going to be here. It's just, it won't stop.
And say what, for those people who are not necessarily aware, the weathering is this like the body just aging and things happening within the body that don't happen within other bodies because of the effects of racism. And we're talking about talking about
Yeah.
brown. We're talking about what happens to us as black people. So and not black people who just necessarily got here. You don't have the same experience. Like the way that impacts our health and even our immunity. And I think that's part. I can't prove. Excuse me. I can't prove it, but I think that's part of what's happening with COVID. It's not just about weight or having, whatever, but it's about like having an immunity system that is not upright because stress. Nothing destroys an immune system quicker than stress, right? So if you're already stressed out and then a pandemic hits, what happens? Because and even the stuff that we do have, hypertension and all that stuff, people always tell you, well, if you just eat right, you won't have high. If you just lose weight, you won't have high blood pressure. Yeah, I did all that, and I still have it. And so, like, it'll go away for a while and then shoot right back up. And so there's something more going on there, and somebody should really study that, but they won't. Because it's just easier to say that like they must be doing something wrong. They must just not eat their vegetables. And the reason even if you go to the reason why black people don't eat a lot of vegetables, not just the fast food in the community, but just like if you're trying to seek out pleasure, right? You're supposed to be able to find meaning and happiness and wealth and pleasure in life. If you strip that from somebody, of course they're going to try to find it in food or alcohol or whatever. Like there has to be a reckoning in this country. So I agree with you. Thank you. No, you got another quote? You got another paragraph, fam, or anything? Page?
No, I was super nervous. I appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
You did real good. Thank you, fam. I appreciate you.
All right, take care of yourself.
Yeah, there's a lot that goes with what we have to deal with. And it ain't just about they didn't eat so big. Nah. I'm a healthy weight and all that stuff. And that blood pressure still just fire right back up all the time. No, it ain't just that. There's some other stuff going on. I got more carrots and cucumbers and lentils and mushrooms. No, and I love them. I love them to death. You got to, but there's some other stuff going on. I sure enough do. Let me go. And she did well. She got that phone fixed. And she was a champ. Shout out to her because she said y'all was roasting her and the thing. I don't remember. I think I remember. I think I do. Okay. Let me go to the next call. I'm going to 405. 405, what's your name? Where you calling from? What's on your mind?
My name's Charlie. I'm calling from Dallas.
What's going on, Charlie? How you doing?
Doing well. I have a personal anecdote, but also something in regards to the education that immigrants have when they come here. And actually, this has been something that I have learned from Dr. Edwin Nichols and Cornel West, which is that a lot of these countries have educational systems that are completely set up different than ours. They actually teach their children, and in the words of Cornel West, he says that rich kids get taught and poor kids get tested. And all black people are poor, so we're in that second category. The whole system is based upon just exclusion. So for people who may not know, if you ever go to a job and you're new at a job and you're working with a lot of white folks and they kind of treat you in such a way where it's like technically they told you but they didn't show you, they're doing that to your kids. So they can technically say, well, we showed them and they just failed out. That's number one. Number two, I want to dispel this myth of the black millennial. There are no black millennials. We get confused because of all these terminologies and intersectionality and all that. There's no black millennials. And I'm going to tell you why. My mother was under the myth that better education could be better for black people. And so she worked herself to the bone to make sure that we actually got into white schools, and we did. So we moved into those neighborhoods, but it was actually at the expense of having other beneficial things that could be of substance to life. So we often lived in apartments with no furniture, duplexes, no furniture, a lot of moving. I actually moved over 40 times by the time I was in 7th grade, okay? This is why there's no black millennials, because I've seen this. When I was in, what year was this? This is about 1987. I actually saw the beginning parts of what these white kids would learn in terms of computer coding. So they're in 1st grade, They're learning the basic orientation of computer coding and computers and all that kind of stuff. They have these libraries. Instead of having maybe English one day, they all go down to the library, and there's a library set up with 50 Apple computers. Everyone has their own computer, all this kind of stuff, right? This is the foundation of what they would inherit in terms of those jobs in Silicon Valley. The reason there's no black millennials is because black millennials are the thing that's supposed to be the determining factor is that they're born between certain dates in which the internet would be introduced to them. But here's the thing: just because you were born between those dates doesn't mean that you had access to the resources that you would need in order to inherit those skills in Silicon Valley.
Mm.
So a lot of those white kids, they had computers in the classroom. They would go home and they have computers at home. They'd have computers between their friends, all this kind of stuff. And they're on the internet as early as 1990. I have black friends who are up here. They didn't know what the internet was until 2001. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So this thing that you said it before, we don't know how to add. We get caught up in all this terminology and this definition, and we don't really know how we're properly situated. So I'm very thankful for your show, thankful for the book.
Thank you.
Because we really need to be dealing with reality in terms of where it is we actually are and who it is we are. And there's actually no shame in that. No. Because this is a catastrophe that has been visited upon us.
Yeah, you're right. You're right about that. You're right about that, fam. You're right about it. Thank you so much, though, for calling in and speaking up. We have people speaking up for the boomers. Now they're speaking up for the millennials. So I appreciate you. And I don't doubt it. I don't doubt it at all. Let me try to keep it moving. I am going to go to 281. What's your name? Where you calling from? What's on your mind?
Hi, this is Shakara. I'm calling from Houston, Texas.
Hey, Shakara, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm calling again, second time this year. I called back about maybe 2 months ago when the pandemic started. I was in Tallahassee at that time. So I wanted to call in with 2 points. The first one, having my own experience. Second one about remittances. The first point I wanted to make is, I am half ADOS and I am half Nigerian. My father is from Nigeria. And so in terms of with this book, I'm really glad you did this book club, because it's basically, it's what I've seen from my side. Like I've been able to see both sides clearly. And so my father, I said this once before on the show, but my father, he came in 1980 from Nigeria for pharmacy school. My father, my grandfather paid his way. My father through pharmacy school cash in Louisiana.
Yep.
That's where my parents met. My mother, she was from New Orleans. When you look at their lives, though, my mother was a high school dropout, and she ended up ultimately dying, incarcerated in Galveston. Early death. As a child, we were evicted. I lived with her. She had custody of me. We were evicted 3 times. But look at the life of my father. They divorced when I was 3. He moved on. He was able to remarry. I had my 4 brothers, my 4 half-brothers. He was able to become an entrepreneur. And so the point I'm making is that when many black immigrants come to, this country, in the case of my father, his life was basically bolstered by my mother's failures. And the way I mean that is that through marriage, he was able to gain a lot. He was able to gain citizenship. In turn, he was able to, implement chain migration. He brought 3 siblings here and their wives and their spouses. He was even able to bring his second wife over. And so, the point I'm making is that, without ADOS, black immigrants have nothing in this country. The 1965 Immigration Act, the 1990 Immigration Act really made a lot of things possible. And then the second point I wanted to make was on page 64.
Uh-huh.
I'm just going to read it real quick.
Okay.
But basically, it says, every year black immigrants remit millions of dollars back to their origin countries, partly to support family, but also to invest in homes and businesses. Indeed, in 2015, nearly 17% of Jamaicans and 9% of Guyana's gross domestic product came from remittances. Similarly, nearly 25% of Haiti's GDP and 13% of Ghana's GDP came from remittances. So what I wanted to say about that was I did a post on Twitter. ADOS Red Bear on Twitter. Basically, what's happening is that, like I said, the same situation between what happened with my mother and my father. My father's life was bolstered, brought up by my mother's failures. So what is happening is that, on Twitter you see all these, these black immigrant Twitter coming at ADOS. The thing is, they need ADOS to not exist, because what happens is it messes up a lot of good things that's going for them. At this point, they can't send money back home. They can't have good lives here. Not only that, they can't have good lives back at home. They have extended family that's depending on them. And so when you see, when they see the hashtag ADOS on Twitter, it's like it sends them into a fit of rage. Because they understand that with hashtag ADOS, the political movement, the disaggregation, they understand that they have a lot to lose. You see?
Yeah, I get triggered too. Because if you're taking, like, if you're using ADOS kind of to shoehorn, right, and get the goods and go into these jobs, and you're saying we're all the same, and a group has come about and said no, like you said, we have to disaggregate this, and we get the fruit because we paid the cost, and you have to compete with white people, right? Like, then yeah, I think that makes sense. But that's why it's kind of a triggering thing. Like, it's kind of like, even that whole thing, I don't know if people remember what it got triggered about, the joke about having no Wi-Fi. I don't think the joke, and some people tried to say, oh no, it was you somebody made an anti-poverty joke, and they said that's what it was. No, that's not what it is. I think sometimes with comedy, any kind of comedy, whether it's comedy or people on Twitter, or whether it's a stand-up routine, I think sometimes what happens is stuff hits too close to home. And you all have come here and tried to convince us that you're kings and queens, and that somehow you have more culture. Some of you, not all of you, we know allies from enemies. But some of you have done that, and then like the other caller who calls in, say ADOS has been the ones who bigged it up and be like, yeah, y'all have culture. I'm going to be like you. I'm going to wear the shells. And we have pushed that as much as anybody, right? We bear responsibility for that. But I think when you point out, listen, this Wi-Fi, I ain't finna debate because Wi-Fi finna be out. Then you point out something that makes them very uncomfortable, because they don't exist on the reality of the country that they're from. They exist and traffic on a myth. They exist on this idea of Wakanda, which is why I had so big of a problem with Black Panther, because there is no Wakanda. That's not the same thing as an underdeveloped country. And, even how poor we are and as a bottom caste here, I don't think most of us understand that we would have a large problem surviving in these countries because we're westernized people, and we don't want to see ourselves as westernized people. We kind of want to romanticize Africa as if it's one place instead of 54 disparate countries. And I think when the person said that about the Wi-Fi, it hit too close to home about what the real problems are in different countries on the continent, and nobody wants to own that. They want us to think, and we think it. We're a huge part of the problem. We think they're Wakanda. They want to keep that. Too many of them want to keep that idea going. When you say, no, you're not Wakanda, you ain't got no Wi-Fi. You ain't got no Wi-Fi. There's a lot of other stuff going on. You say, oh. Then all of a sudden it's a problem, because how can you traffic on this idea of kings and queens if you ain't kings and queens and you don't have no Wi-Fi?
Pretty much. And, I actually my dad gave me the opportunity when I was a small child. He actually took me to Nigeria.
Okay.
And, I was 8 years old at the time. But,
a mere baby.
Coming to America.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm thinking coming to America. So when I get there, I'm just like, oh my goodness gracious. There's no running water, even with the elite. They still have their issues. You know, they have to have backup generators when the lights go out.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they have to take an extra bucket of water to flush the toilet. If you go to the hospital, there's basically no healthcare infrastructure there. I got sick when I was there. Luckily, I didn't, you know, have a serious allergic reaction, but, you know, I broke out in hives. The doctor looked at me and said, well, I can't do nothing for you, pretty much. And so, you know, I'm so grateful to you, Yvette, that
Thank you.
That you and Tone have come out with, you know, to be able to disaggregate, you know, ADOS from everybody else. Because even growing up, I always saw the difference. I always knew the difference. And even when Obama came, I would say, you know, he's not, you know, African American. Well, that's the term we had at the time. He's not African American. His mother is white and his father is from Kenya. He doesn't have the same experiences. And everybody's telling me to shut up. But,
me too, fam. Me too. I'm there with you. We both got told to shut up.
Yeah, pretty much. So, I mean, so it's so important to have this moment. I remember seeing you back in 2017. I'm just like, this woman's a godsend. I mean, without being able to, if you can't distinguish yourself from everybody else, then what chance do you have to fight for a justice claim? You see what I mean?
No, you can't yet. No.
But that's all I had to say.
Thank you, fam. I appreciate it. That was a good call. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Yeah, you're right, though. We ain't got no chance. And let me just say this, too. Like, you know, I'm not going to get into it. I'm not going to get into it. Thank you, fam. I'm not going to get into it with nobody about the defund the police stuff. Because I don't even hear a whole lot about it no more. But let me just say this, family. When you are in one of these countries, like what she talked about is true. What is the writer who the Nigerian writer? She did there was an essay, and what she said and what they all say is, in Nigeria you have to, if you live in a well-to-do community or whatever, you have to have you all have to pay guards to live outside so that the people don't come and take your stuff. And so what that means is, you can't really necessarily call 911. You have to pay your own guards so that robbers don't come in the night. Now, see, I don't want to necessarily live that way. The problem that we have with the police is that we're a bottom caste. And when you're a bottom caste, you just get treated a certain way. You haven't made us American. That's our problem with the police. I don't want to live in a world I want to live in a world where we're just like everybody else, where you don't get treated a special way because you're a different kind of brown or because you're white, and Negroes get treated this way because we are in the ghetto together, as opposed to a flourishing a black community together or integrated community or whatever it is. We're just in the ghetto together, and so they treat us a certain way because they know they're coming into the ghetto. The problem is that you haven't made us whole. Ain't nobody around the country defunding the police, and I don't want to have to pay my own little ragtag guards to be outside the gate so robbers don't come in. I need some kind of continuity. I need when one police talk to another police, they got the same system. They got the same system down. I don't want no guards outside talking with walkie-talkies or whatever thing they doing. I need everything to go. I need to be able to be dispatched somewhere. Somebody trying to come in the window pane. No. The police need to work for us. Not put their boot on our neck. I need you to work for me. I said it a lot when I first. Treat me like an old white woman with a cat that I'm just stroking. Officer over there. Yeah, work for me. You ever see how police interact with people in white neighborhoods? They work for it. It's clear they work for them. Well, yes, ma'am. We were just over there. Yeah, do that over here. I want you to work for me and act like it. And I want to be made whole so you know when you come into my community, you know who you work for. You don't look at me the way you look at me. Okay? A lot of things have to change, but this whole idea, we're just going to get rid of we're just going to move all the funding. Yes, police get paid too much. They got a whole bunch of stuff for what they got stuff for? They got a whole bunch of stuff for tanks and all kind of stuff that they don't need. That's part of what happened. in terms of and yeah, get them cops with Breonna Taylor. That's part of what happened with all these. But you giving these people too much money. So yes, you need to do. Y'all get paid too doggone much. I agree, but you can't just say we're not gonna have police. The problem is what happens with us in our interactions with police, and it's set up that way. It's set up that way for them to do whatever they do to us. It's been happening from day one. And they running around with military weapons and kicking and using military force stuff to get running around with tanks. Y'all little toy soldiers. I'm sick of that. That's part of. But let me stop. I done went too far into the military gear conversation and the overpayment. But I'm not finna hire my own guards. I'm now going to my next call. I'm going to 202. 202. What's your name? Where you calling from? What's on your mind?
Yes. Hello.
Hey, what's going on? 202.
Hey, Yvette, and I just want to say thank you, and I want to say thank you to Dr. Anthony, and also my cousin, Keith Morgan Short, who exposed me to the ADLS movement.
Good. That's a good cousin.
I'm serious. Like, he was just fearful of the future of my daughter. He doesn't have kids. He's a homosexual, and he's fearing for the future of my daughter.
Aww.
And I want to piggyback on what the lady who was just talking, I don't know where she's from, but I think she said Louisiana.
Yeah, her mom's from Louisiana and her daddy's Nigerian.
She talked about the patient before. I just want to talk about my experience when I studied abroad in Brazil. So basically, when I studied abroad, my sister, I'll call her my sister, she was very jealous of me because she thought I had everything. I'm Adolf, right? Mm-hmm. And she just thought she had way more than me, but she was just jealous because she had this picture of what America looked like. In fact, she even thought the capital was New York City. She didn't even know the capital was Washington, D.C., where I was from. I mean, she researched me and everything, knew where I lived. But to that point, I just want to say that I have neighbors who are moving into these new houses in Washington, D.C., who are immigrants. And I feel some type of way about that because they're more financially literate than I am. My mom is not financially literate. My grandmother was not financially literate. Her mom was not financially literate. So what I'm worried about is once we do get these reparations, which I know that we're going to do because you have people like me who feel real strongly about this movement who is going to push this agenda forward. But I feel like, once we get this reparations, what are we going to do with it? I feel like the issue right now is financial literacy and the fact that we don't know how to invest. We don't know how to build capitalism in our own country.
Well, let me just break.
They go into these programs like my neighbor. She's from Ethiopia. Let me just stop you right there, fam.
I don't think this is. I'm gonna let you go, fam, and I'm gonna address it though. I'm gonna address it, but I'm gonna let you go because we're trying to deal with the book. But I'm gonna let you go, but I'm gonna address it really quickly so we can get back to the book. Financial literacy without finance. The reason nobody knows how to manage necessarily, and there's no evidence of that. First of all, Black people outpace white people in savings once you adjust for earnings. So there's no evidence that we're financially literate. But what happens is you really learn to manage finances once you have finances. And so part of the reason if your people, and that's probably an individual issue, didn't know how to do that is because they never really had finances to manage. And that's something that has to happen, and that happens with reparations. So I'll just leave that at that, and then we're going to the next call. Let's talk about the book, family. This is a book club show. Let's talk about the book. I am going to 443. 443, what's your name? Where you calling from? What's on your mind?
Good evening, Yvette.
Good evening.
D.C. and Baltimore, ED.
Okay, what's going on with you?
I just want to, I'm using the digital version of the book.
Okay.
I have a Kindle, and I'm a little nervous because I don't know if I gave you a page number, how it's going to match with what you're saying. So
I understand. Well, just give me a chapter. Just give me a chapter and read from it. We'll find it.
Okay. Okay. Well, this says here, page 228. It's titled "Goal 2: Disparities Among Blacks."
Okay. Well, give us the quote. Give us the quote you want. That's cool. We'll figure it out.
You have. I'll read it.
Okay.
Part of it. It says, this project highlights how black immigrants has changed the demographic makeup of the U.S. black population. Are you following it?
I'm fine. I'm good. I have a sense of where it is.
Yeah, I'm here to listen to. I just listen to it instead of trying to find it. In 1960, less than 1% of the country's black population was foreign-born. By 2017, the number had increased to approximately 10%, a 900% increase over a 57-year period. In addition to decreasing the share of blacks who descend from American slaves, I like that part too, by the way, the growth of the black immigrant population has also increased overall birth country diversity among blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to read all of that, but you get the idea. But basically, I got from that how the black population, the American descendant of slave population in this country, how the composition has basically changed. And when I read that, I thought about, wow, how would this be replaced? It just goes back to, like, policy, like what you were talking about yesterday. When you say policy makes a big difference in things. And I can take that, really, and compare that to toward the end of the book where it was saying something about the prison population, and it was saying how the policy was to incarcerate more people. The prosecutors were aggressive in trying to get people, and they locked them all up. And a lot of those people, they're serving for time for, like, petty crimes, you know, for small ownership of, like, small amounts of marijuana or whatever. So there was this policy change that incarcerated a lot of people. So I just want to compare those two. And also with this changing population and everything, I think I'm kind of getting a little nervous now.
No, take your time. You're fine. You get good.
Yeah. But basically, I'm thinking also about Attorney General Barr, and how he's being questioned and everything, and how he wants to change the sentencing guidelines. That's really, like, this is really outlined because the president's friend, this Michael Flynn, and the other guy, can't remember his name, Roger Stone, you know, they did something. Now, you all of a sudden, after this has been done, you want to change the policy. And he's supposed to be the Attorney General, and he's supposed to be representing the good of the entire nation, but you want to change the policy to accommodate and make things good for your friends, your ponies. So this goes back to the whole thing that you're saying, policy, 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 how it makes a big difference. And so if we can draft policy that would really reflect the ideas that you're talking about, a society that is much closer to being more of a utopia where everybody is treated the same. It's like how wonderful the world would be if there was a policy that said, okay, people who went to college, who invested so much time and money, went to school and did all that, if we changed policy to make sure that these people got in positions that, you know, that allow them to have the kind of jobs for the training and the education that they invested in.
True.
I mean, we would have a much better society, but it's all like what you were saying about policy.
That's true. That's true.
And I'm just going to close with this one little thing I want to say about the book. I really appreciate, that's not the book that I think I would have picked out on my own. But the advantage in reading something like this through a book club, it gets you to read things that you wouldn't read.
That's true.
Because I actually, like, read a lot of that stuff over and over. It took a while to read it because I read it so many times that I can almost, like, you know, recite some parts of it, you know, just the way it was written, verbatim, you know.
Yeah.
And so I really appreciate it. There was a lot of repetition, but maybe
I know it got on my nerves. Yep. I said the repetition got on my nerves, but yeah.
Oh yeah, it was a lot. I mean, I was just reading things. I said, wait a minute, I remember reading.
Yeah, you already said that.
I got the word for word.
Yeah, you already said that. Don't say that no more.
Yeah, but it was really, really good. I really appreciate. I appreciate the work that you're doing, and I don't know how I'm going to handle this with this Kindle, this digital thing, because like I said, I just don't know. But I just want to say again, I appreciate the reading of school, and thank you very much for the work that you're doing.
Appreciate you, fam. Thank you so much. Yeah, that was a good quote right there. That was a good quote. I appreciate her. I'm gonna try to keep it moving. I'm going to 301. What's your name? Where you calling from? What's on your mind?
Hey Yvette, how you doing? This is Nicole from North Carolina by way of the DMV. How are you?
I'm doing good. How about yourself?
I'm hanging in there, you know. Another day in ADOS life.
Got to.
But I just wanted to make a comment because piggybacking off of the second caller who was talking about the millennials and the young lady who was saying that we did not have financial literacy. Now, I grew up, I'm an 80s baby, and my dad at the time in the early 90s was just getting big into technology. So we had the, in the schooling, we had we didn't even do it in school by this time. We was at home, and my dad had everything, getting up and everything, going for learning how to do Microsoft Office and things like that. And this is like 1993. I'm in like third grade learning how to do this. So I had an advantage technologically coming up. I also, had an advantage because coming up I was able to leave out of the inner cities and we moved to the suburbs. Now that's where all the immigrants were. So by the time I got to elementary school, I was introduced, if you will, to immigrants of different races, different countries, different cultures. Because where I came from in the city, it was just black folks, just us in the hood. But I got out to the suburbs, I got to meet other cultures, and I thought it was a real cool thing. It's something different, something new besides the black and white. And at the time, I always kind of believed that we were the same. And as I got older, and especially when it gets to college, because that's when things separate, and you realize that these affirmative action programs that were supposed to be put together for ADOS, these minority scholarships that are supposed to be for ADOS, is actually made for immigrants. And I ended up going to college just thinking to myself, I'll be able to, have programs set aside for ADOS, because I'm ADOS, that I don't have money, so there'll be a program for me to go to school where I'll be able to get an education. Mm-hmm. But that wasn't the case. The immigrants, of course, they had all sorts of programs, funding, things like that, that allowed them to come here, stay here, live here, get educated here, and they can go back home with no debt. Mm-hmm. I'm almost $100,000 in debt, just off of education. I don't even have the degree. But I went to school with people who came from other countries. I had one girl who was a roommate of mine. Her father was an ambassador from the Dominican Republic. She grew up with money. She had servants in the DR. She never went without anything. She gets to America, and I guess she realizes, she can move her family here. They can all come here, and they can have a good life.
I understand.
We end up becoming really cool, and she tells me, we go to the DR, visit her country, because, it's a little different experience. Mm-hmm. And we're at this restaurant, and you can see the difference, even in another country, between the racial hierarchy, because, from slavery in the Caribbean and things like that. So the Hispanics there that are lighter skinned are usually the ones in the top of society, and the darker skinned ones are, poorer. Mm-hmm. So we're at this restaurant, and she's darker than me. I'm fairly light skinned. She's a little bit darker than me, but she comes from money. And she was talking to me about how, black people in America are ignorant, and how we are this and how we are that. And I said, well, wait a minute. That's my people. I'm the same. That's what you're talking about. She says, no, you're different. No, I'm not. I'm no different than anybody else. No matter how I talk, no matter what I fought through to get to where I'm at, I'm no different than anybody else who struggled in this country to be here. And you come to this country, we were in her country at the time, vacationing, but you come to my country, you can get my benefit. You can get a better life than me. And then you can turn around and tell me how my people are ignorant? Okay. That was the end of our friendship, honestly. I never spoke to her again after that.
I don't think you should have.
I felt like it was me. Huh?
I say I don't think you should have. I don't think you should have. I think you should have. You got.
This is my thing, is that she's too educated. She knows the history. She knows what happened with Haiti. She knows what happened in her country. It's like she chooses to see things through the white lens, knowing history. Because we've had talks of history, which is what blew me. Because we've talked about it in depth. We've had these conversations. So for her to then turn around and blame the ignorance of the oppressed on the oppressed, knowing that their oppressors took their education, their country, their culture, gave them all those benefits, I was too offended. I couldn't. There was no repair of that for me.
Yeah,
so,
it should have been
some people I'll have conversations with, huh?
I say I said that there shouldn't have been any coming back from that. You did the right thing, and everybody got to learn to. Yeah. Everybody got to learn to do the right thing.
I have my lines because I have other immigrant friends, and we can have these conversations. But I draw a line when you call my people ignorant. Like there's no coming back from that. I'm sorry, but you can sit here and say, well, I've had people say, well, I've come from a country with no food, no water, and I can come here and do better. Yes, you can, because there's programs set to help you succeed. Those same programs that are not available to me and mine. We can have those conversations, but you're going to respect my people, and you're going to respect our struggle.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, fam. I appreciate you. I appreciate you calling in. We just got to get back to the book. But I appreciate you. That was a good story. I appreciate it. I sure do appreciate it. I don't mean to disrespect. Let's keep moving. 706. What's your name? Where you calling from? What's on your mind? Lord have mercy. 706. Are you there?
Yeah, I was talking to myself. This is Trish in Atlanta. How are you?
Hey, Trish, why you was talking to yourself? Don't do that.
I was on mute. Why isn't she listening to me? Okay.
That's problematic.
So I have two passages. One you might have gone over, but I came in late, so I don't know. And one is going back to last night on page 50. And I'm in a Kindle too, and it has to correlate to whatever the book is. It does for that reader.
Sometimes it don't. Sometimes it don't. I gotta stand with the lady. I've had a book that's one time it didn't, because I had the paper one in the Kindle one time for reasons that I don't know why, but it didn't act right. But go on. I'm sorry.
Okay. All right. Well, this one seems to correlate. So I'm on page 50, and it talks about Obama's speech in the Democratic National Convention, where he chided us and said, go into any inner city neighborhood and folks will tell you that government alone can't teach our kids to learn, blah, 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 bull, 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 bull. And then you keep going, and it says, however, his core statement, particularly his reference to acting white, is rooted in the oppositional culture thesis advanced by the anthropologist John Odbu, which states that involuntary minorities, Black American involuntary minorities, anyway, okay, all right, underperform in education relative to voluntary minorities, blah, 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 blah. So my point is, I looked up John Odbu, and he's Nigerian.
Yeah, well, the name was kind of a giveaway that he wasn't Adolf.
Yeah, like we're listening to
someone else tell us about us. Yeah, like somebody else tell us about us.
Say that again.
No, I said we're listening to somebody else teach us about us. You can't teach me about me. You probably didn't go to school with me.
Yeah, that just made me mad. That burned my bacon. And then the second thing was on page 175, and like I said, you may have talked about it already, but it talks about although research has shown that education is highly correlated with a range of social and economic outcomes, with more educated individuals enjoying higher life expectancy, low morbidity, and greater earnings. Surprisingly, education seems to do very little to narrow the infant mortality gap between white and Black American infants. That broke my heart. I was like, you mean to tell me our people are going into hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt to try to do better and to lift their family, and the child morbidity rate is higher? That's crazy.
Yep.
Like, you just really cannot escape this. There is no escape. Like, we have to have reparations, and like that's all I had. What I wanted to say.
Well, appreciate it, fam. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for calling in. And don't be talking to yourself like that. It's unnatural. No, I'm just playing. But yeah, I think it shows like it shows like the permanence of like the creation of race. And I'm not talking about race in terms of just flat blackness, but ADOS. Because what it takes into account is like how the mother is treated, right? Not only that, and what kind of life is the mother leading, right? Usually a life where she's being racially discriminated against. So, or a life where she doesn't have the economics, and even though she is going through college and doing all this stuff right, she could still be facing eviction, right? Or living in a subpar neighborhood that's not, that doesn't correlate that with her education. Because we still don't live in the kind of neighborhoods that we're supposed to live at, even when you graduate, even when you have a college degree. So there's so much that goes into account, from the medical care, because they don't care if you're a PhD. Trustee McMillan Cotton did a great piece about, what happened to her when she was pregnant. Dr. Trustee McMillan Cotton, and what happened to her, and how she was treated. Like, and don't say minority, because she's a black woman, and she's a darker skinned black woman, and I'm sure an Asian black woman, I'm sure an Indian black woman an Indian woman or Asian woman didn't get treated like this black woman. Right? So don't say minority. No, we get treated. Especially ADOS. You come in there, there's no accent, no, we get treated in a very specific way. Right? It's not minority, it's not Asian, it's not Indian. No, this was a black woman. And people assume that she didn't know nothing. PhD, but you assume she don't know nothing, and she must have did something wrong, and that's why she's having trouble with her pregnancy. That's not good health care. Those are anti-ADOS stereotypes that are putting us in this position. And like, there's a lot that goes into like this infant mortality rate. So I don't want to get into it too much because I want to get to the call. So I'm going to now 708. What's your name? Where you calling from? What's on your mind?
Hi, Yvette. This is Allison in Chicago, ADOS.
Hey, what's going on? What's on your mind?
How are you?
Pretty good.
I wanted to talk about on page 199, and you were mentioning, black families and ADOS families, and us having, all of this, the disparities that go with ADOS, the contemporary marriage patterns with ADOS and black immigrants.
Mm-hmm.
Probably at the middle of the page, it says, with respect to domestic immigration status, black American movers were substantially more likely to be married than black American non-movers, which I don't like that mover and non-mover thing that he has in there, because, my grandmother and grandfather came from Mississippi and Arkansas, and I think they were all alike, movers and non-movers.
That's what I see.
Okay, it says, despite modest differences in marriage rates among black immigrant men by region of birth, both African and Caribbean black immigrants were more likely to be married than either black Americans collectively or black American movers. Now, when I look at that paragraph, it's real telling, and I love this little table here, 7-1 on page 200, and it gives you actually the weighted values of all the black immigrant groups and native whites in America.
Mm-hmm.
And I find that it is very interesting, because most immigrants, when they come over here, because they're tied up with the selective immigration and the labor market,
Mm-hmm.
Most of them that come over here either have a spouse or they're sending for their spouse. They're coming over here for jobs, or they're coming over here for school, or they're going back home to marry someone of their, lineage. I found it interesting that it said 60%, 60% and 60% of white women are married, and 31% of black women are not married. And I think that it also, it was similar for like African and Caribbean immigrants. It was more of them married than Adolf. Okay, but I think that pattern. It seemed like they could have did something a little bit more with the, with the stats. Mm-hmm. But a lot of that pattern is because of the family access to skilled jobs. Immigrants come over here. They're either I'm going to med school, or I'm taking this skilled job. I'm going to be an engineer or whatever. And another one of the things is the men to women ratio with our group, mm-hmm. with Adolph's group.
Okay.
There are more Adolph's women than men. And I think Tone did a really good job on this. It was a video he did about Can Black Love Survive without black wealth. Mm-hmm. And he indicated that, our bottom half, 50% of our bottom half black households, we are worth less than $1. So I can see that can really figure out into these disparities here. Because everyone is really, all of these black immigrants are eating off of the fruit of us. So I thought that was interesting.
Well, I agree, fam. I agree. It is very interesting. And I don't think I think one of the things that we don't do is understand how big a component wealth is of marriage. It's bringing together two kind of different wealths. That's why people, if you see like even how people marry, a lot of the times it's kind of built off that traditionally, not necessarily just right now, but I think people misunderstand how, like, well, if you just love with no money and no wealth, it's going to be stressful. And like, how do you deal with that stress? And how do you have is it really a marriage? Like, because you're two people. Are you two people living in the same house, or are you married? And what does that mean? And I don't think we have really delved into what that means and what it's supposed to mean and what kind of union that's supposed to be and how it's supposed to be built on wealth. Not nearly enough of that has been done in our community. So.
Exactly. I agree with you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. It was a very interesting. It's very interesting time. Thank you, fam. Let me try to get to a couple more calls before we get out of here, fam. 212, what's your name? Where you calling from? What's on your mind?
Hey, can you hear me?
It sounds like you got a lot in your background. Is you got a fan on?
I'm going away from the fan.
Okay, leaf blower or something.
Oh, I don't know. I think this phone has a bad connection.
No, I can hear you now. I can hear you now. You good now? You good now?
Oh, okay, good. Okay, I just wanted to say real quick, because they were just talking about marriage, I wanted to point out as a boomer, as I grew up, I had a black mother, black father, uncles, aunts. Marriage was at a different level in our generation and previous generations. Not that it was, 100% or anything like that, but I think what we're looking at now is part of the continual degradation of, our life cycle, and this deterioration of our community under the consistent pressure. But what I wanted to just say about the reflection of what we're talking about in my particular workplace, and I guess I wouldn't necessarily have focused on it until I became familiar with you and Tone and the way you break everything down. I've worked in the federal government in 2 agencies, in the U.S. Attorney's Office, and now I'm working in HUD. And the upper level, I'm seeing lawyers from Nigeria and Haiti and almost the majority of black at the upper levels in these government positions are immigrants. Now in the HUD where I work, all of the upper IT people, a lot of Nigerians, no black Americans. So really, that's all I wanted to say in terms of the way it looks on the ground. But I'm going to hang up and just give my appreciation to everything you guys do.
Thank you,
You're
Grandma. I
amazing.
appreciate it. Thank you.
You're doing incredible work.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Who in the chat said breaker? What in the breaker 1-2 is this? Stop it. Anyway, let me go to the next call. The book, family. The book. Let me go to the next call. 704. I'm coming to you. What's your name? Where you calling from? What's on your mind?
Greetings, can you hear me?
I can hear you fine. What's going on? What's on your mind?
How you doing, Yvette?
I'm doing good. How you doing?
I'm Charlotte. I want to thank you and Tone for everything you've done in my past 2 lives. You know, I have read the book.
Good.
It was constructive.
God bless you.
Hello. Hello.
No, I said good. God bless you. That's all I said.
I'm sorry. I thought the book was constructive. A little redundant and just, you know, like the previous callers, the movers, the non-movers, the charts. Could make us concise a little more. I just think it just reinforced the fact, the data. You know, the evidence that prior to 1960, minimal immigration. You know, the prior to few, just with the Panama Canal and everything. So we just gotta, I hope Adolph's family just listen to us, that we just gotta drumbeat Adolph's reparations. The need for specificity. We are the tribe. Adolph's is a tribe, and we can't let immigrants co-opt who and what we are. Previous caller just stated, you know, they up in the echelons of government. We gotta stay firm, Adolph's fam. That's all I wanted to say, Yvette.
Well, okay.
Y'all keep up the good work. I'm behind you 100%.
Appreciate you.
Let's ride on out. Adolph.
Appreciate you, fam. Thank you. I'm going now to, I have 2 504s in the queue, so 5048. I'm coming to you, 5048. What's your name? Where you calling from? What's on your mind?
Hello?
Hey, what's going on?
Everything is good. How you doing, Yvette?
Pretty good. How you doing this Friday? Got your libation?
Yeah, no libations. Just.
No.
All right. I'm going to call and talk about the book.
Okay.
It was a couple of things that just, as I read the book, it gave me a lot of questions. It's like when he took these quotes from these other, I guess, scholarly papers, and it made me think about what questions they didn't ask, you know? And one of the things that I have to go back to the beginning part is one of the things that they talked about, and it said that it talked about how did the people who hired the immigrants, how they like the immigrants better. And it brought to my attention, like, if the only difference between the black immigrants and the black Americans is that we were born in America, does this mean that America broke us? Because if the immigrants are doing they're doing better than us, then it's not about what we're made of. It's about what happened to us.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah.
You know.
So it's not about. It's not just about what's not. Well, they just don't work hard. It's not. You don't understand what America did to us too. Like you don't understand what we. Okay, yeah, I get that.
All right, and then another thing that I just got stuck on. It was like chapter 2. I got stuck there for a long time.
Okay.
And then another thing it brought to my say. All right, does it make racism relax? Because it talked about how much favorable their work ethic and their work practices were in I guess in regards to us, how they were much better. So I was like, all right, so is it that the white folks, when they deal with them, is it that they don't see us the same way as they see the immigrants? Do the immigrants, do they see us the same? Do they see us as the same as them, or do they see us as different? Or do they both look down on us?
Well, I think different. Some groups look down, some groups don't. Some groups ally, some groups don't. Right? But I don't think anybody views us as the same. Like I think that's across the board. So some groups are like, some groups see us and are like allies, and we know the allies, who the allies are when we talk to them. Some groups look down on us and like lie about looking down on us, right? And so. But I don't think any group, whether you're an ally or you're not, I think everybody knows that we're different. Just like we know you're different if you're a Kenyan American, or we know you have a different lineage and a different ancestors and background if you are, you know, Bolivian. It's the same thing, and it's almost like gaslighting to try to tell us, well, no. We get to claim our difference and go and talk about Niger forever, or talk about, or have a great time at the Caribbean Day Parade and celebrate our heritage. But we don't allow you to do that. When you get to do that, then that's just being divisive. And so that is kind of the ridiculousness of this moment.
And then the other thing that I thought about, like, for still stuck on the work situation, and what they said that most of them came on work visas, or they came as to be migrant workers, right? So if they don't work, they lose their visa.
Yeah.
If we don't work, we just lose our job.
Yeah, because we're American. See, people don't understand what being American means, though, is that you can fight. Now, you might lose your job, but you don't get sent nowhere. You don't get sent back to the country that you ran from. That doesn't happen to you. So that's why it begs the question in terms of labor rights. You know, how can immigrants who are undocumented like fight for labor rights and a minimum wage or whatever you want to fight for? They can't. And like, so and that's why white capital wants them here, right? Because they know they can't fight. Remember the poultry plant where they fired the black workers and brought in immigrant workers? It's because they know you can't fight. You fight, you get sent home. They fight, they're citizens, so they have a standing in the courtroom. So I don't think people really, and there used to be a time that everybody understood that. Now everybody has this amnesia because of the direction that the Democratic Party is winning in. It doesn't change the facts on the ground, though.
Mm-hmm. And so another thing I thought about, so if they come here because it's better for them. That means that their capitalist system is broken. And so they come here, like one of the previous calls to say, so they can send money home to help fix things. Yeah. So it's a better life for them here. And so one of the things that I thought about in the studies, did they ever take a study of people who moved back to see how well did they do, or did they lose their wealth status over time?
Well, what the book kind of said, though, is that the people who left still had a high wealth status back home, because sending money back home, or being an earner in America who sent money back home to your people, was a higher status. So you were a higher status back home, and that's what you look at. You're not a higher status here, but you don't see yourself as, for not all immigrants, I'm talking about the people who don't intend on being here forever. You don't see yourself, you're not anchored in being here. You're anchored in your status level back home, and your status back home is high. Your status back here isn't high, but you don't care, because you're sending money back home, and that's how you anchor yourself. You anchor yourself in that social hierarchy, not this one.
Mm-hmm. And the only other thing that I wanted to point out is that when he talked about the education levels, and it was one sentence, and he only talked about the one sentence, I didn't see any other reference from it there, was they said that in the Caribbean, I think that their slavery or slavery period ended like in 1835.
Well, 38 or something.
And I was in 1865.
Mm-hmm.
So they had a 30-year head start as far as education and everything else. So I can see how they were able to become doctors before we can.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there was a line in there, and it seemed kind of contradictory. Maybe it was from two different periods. One period they said the Caribbeans didn't do better, but then like in the previous period they said that the Caribbeans were doctors and things. And I think that's what that head start might have made a difference. But there was still solidarity, because you got to be a doctor to Negroes during that period. But they were able to still have a prestige level that was somewhat higher, because they were able to go and do that and become like professionals at a time where, we hadn't done none of that. So it's a very interesting. It's very interesting, that whole thing. So, thank you, fam. No, appreciate it. Thank you so much for calling. I'm gonna go to my last call of the evening. I am going to go to 5042. 5042. What's your name? Where you calling from? What's on your mind?
Hey, how you doing, Yvette? My name is John. I'm calling from New Orleans, Louisiana.
What's going on? How you?
I'm doing okay. I'm gonna be real quick. I just wanted to say a couple of things before you guys sign off.
Okay.
And I want to say thank you, for all the work that you guys doing. I found ADOS just off of watching YouTube. To be honest with you, nobody never told me. I wish anybody in my family knew about it. But it didn't work like that. But I just wanted to say a couple of things before I go. I didn't read the book, sorry, but I just joined the show, so give me a little time. I'm gonna be able to work through this. But I just wanted to say a couple of things. As far as the immigrants and stuff, a lot of things that they do is divisive. Not the immigrants. I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about the United States performance. The system is divisive, and it was made like that for us to be on the other side of the fence, and them to offer. How they say, oh well, you treat other people on the outside of the house better than you treat people in the inside of the house. Well, that's the same thing. They want you to look at it like that because that's the way it was made. So I just wanted to say a couple of things. That's it. That's over. And I want to ask you another question. Huh?
Oh, I guess he gone. Let me see. Well, let me take 503. 503, I'm coming to you. 503, what's your name? Where you calling from? What's on your mind? I'll take one more.
Hey, Yvette, this is Quentin calling from Portland. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing pretty good. How about you?
I'm doing great, thank you. I wasn't expecting to get in because I heard you say you were taking one last call, and I was the last caller last night too. So interesting. I just wanted to jump right into page 196, where it says, quote, although no single factor explains the widening of the marriage gap between white and black Americans since the 60s, research has several occasions that are likely to have helped drive divergent marriage patterns between the two groups. Then he goes on to name name some of the reasons for the marriage decline in ADOS communities. One of them is high levels of unemployment among men in poor urban areas, reduce the number of marriageable black men. Because employment is strongly correlated with men's ability to marry, black American men's high jobless rate combined with black American women's low rates of intermarriage led to a decline in marriage among blacks. And I kind of had an issue with the author in this particular portion of the book because he doesn't talk about, or he didn't really discuss how low-skilled immigrants coming to the United States, how all of that is correlated to the high levels of unemployment among black men. So it makes black men...
So he didn't talk about it. Oh, yeah, that's true. That's very true. That's true.
Yeah, so it makes, black men redundant. And, there's really no need for their labor. And he didn't really talk about that. And then the second reason, another one of the reasons he gave was the incarceration rates of black men. By 2008, 12% of white American men with less than a high school education were incarcerated, compared to 37.2% of black American men. So there it is again, because of the deindustrialization that occurred in the inner cities and the jobs were sent overseas, as we all know, along with a high influx of low-skilled immigrants, it made black men, it just made them to where they could lock them up. So they weren't even needed anymore. So that kind of contributes to the incarceration rate.
Well, you make a good point that I've made before that has gotten me called all kinds of names. But one of the points that I made before when I was discussing immigration, when everybody was like, "Why do you feel the way?" Because what happens is, if you need the labor of black men, right? You can't lock black men up in mass. What happens though, if you bring in labor to kind of replace them and make them a redundant labor force, it gives you the opportunity to do whatever you want to do with them. So you can lock them up because you replace them. Now, if you need labor in this country, and this country does need labor, you can't lock it, and black men are a part of what you need. You can't warehouse them in prisons. And so I don't think a lot of people have made the connection between, between those two things, incarceration and immigration, in terms of what you can do to black men, because you don't need their labor anymore. So they're citizens, and you don't want them to be citizens, right? But they are. So you figure out a way to lock them up, but you got to deal with, when we lock them up, what are we going to do? Because now we have a whole labor force that's been taken off the market. Well, we just put another labor force there, so that we don't have to deal with them or worry about them. So that's a good point, fam. Go on. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So it's and then they talk about how many immigrants marry before migrating to the U.S. So that's something else that needs to be disaggregated and looked at. But I mean, it was just fascinating to me how much immigration has been a part of sort of making the pool of eligible black men and black women for nuclear families, how it's kind of how big of a role immigration plays in that. And I feel like a lot of our scholars and leaders, or quote unquote leaders, they don't really take on that issue in the way that they should. So I just don't understand how you could be, a black ADOS woman and just be like pro open borders or something like that, and then express ire about the lack of eligible ADOS men, if that's if that's who you want to partner with. So I'm not going to hold you too long. I just found that particular portion to be it left a lot to be desired. I wish he would have talked about what does that mean for ADOS and what should we do.
Yeah, thank you, fam. I appreciate it, because what happened is he didn't draw a lot of conclusions, and I think people stop too short when they write books like this a lot of times. We're gonna end the calls there, fam. I appreciate everybody who called in, but I think that's part of the problem. I think you end it too short. So yes, how can you say I can't? How can you, as a heterosexual ADOS woman, say I can't find a man and be open borders? Because you can't find a mate who's gainfully employed, not fresh out of jail or whatever, or locked up for life, because there's this labor force that makes it to where America doesn't have to grapple with, or America doesn't have to say we can't have mass incarceration because we need these people out here working. So you've created, you're in favor of this kind of this thing that creates this redundant labor market, right? That doesn't benefit you at all, and paves the way for the people who could potentially be your mates to be locked up, right? And then you say, well, I'm in favor of open borders, that like we all need some place to live. And it's just, no, you have to create a place to live for the people who are at home. White supremacy will create a mess to where there's a flood of immigrants to America, but like you got to deal with, like, don't help create the mess. Don't destabilize countries or put policies in place to where people can't decide. People have to come. Now, there are other people who come for different reasons. They don't have to come. They come to kind of advantage. That's what we see with a lot of the elite immigrants. There are a lot of different things going on here. The ball is moving, family. The ball is moving. But anyway, fam, great book club. We enjoyed it. It's going to be great. I will decide on the next book club sometime soon. I gave you an inkling of what I was thinking. Some of you already email me routinely with your ideas of what should be the next book club book or whatever. Please do that. Again, editor at breakingbrown.com. The book club, the cast book that I put, that was up last night. I don't have it again today, but that was up. I put that up yesterday. So if you saw it yesterday, let me know what you think of that book. If anybody's read, I don't think it comes out to like the 3rd or 4th of August or something, but I purchased it because somebody recommended it who I respected. So, fam, please be easy breezy. Finish your libation. If you have an alcoholic libation, do not drink and drive. Stay in your house and go to sleep. Now, hit that like button for me. Hit that like button all the time. Don't cost you no monies. If you want to donate, you can go to donatebrown.com, patreon.com/Wacarnell, a shirt at adosmerch.com. I sent some of those off today. If yours was in the mix, you should have gotten an email. I think that's about it. Hit that bell. Hit that subscribe button for me, please. That is important. And we will be back here. I will announce the book club soon, because I'm trying to do it now to where we do it every month. So I'm trying to move it up that way. We can do 12 books a year. So, anyway, that's what you call a political education. So, easy breezy, fam. Enjoy the rest of your night. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. And just take care of yourselves. Be kind to yourself. Do some self-care this weekend. You know what I always say, take a bubble bath and some chamomile tea and just relax your bones. Epsom salt for your feet. And I will see you again soon, family.